1, 2. And there we go. We are going live. I think I am live right now. Yeah, I'm live. All right, let me make sure I can share this this post with everybody. And we'll get going. A few questions from the weekend. Share in a group. Yeah. Okay, a few questions from the weekend. I'm going to post on here and get live Q&A from Mother's Day. And that'll give people a couple minutes to log on. I have multiple screens happening, if you can't tell. It's quite an impressive display of things. Believe it or not, I actually have my iPad hooked up, and I didn't even realize this program will go to my iPad and let me do stuff on my iPad. And then I guess I can do that on my iPad and then come back to you. Mind blown, people. Mind blown. Anyway, hopefully we'll have some folks catch on in just a minute and catch up with us. But for now, just want to say it's Tuesday. It's actually Tuesday evening. I didn't have a chance to do it to do the Q&A at lunch, and we've kind of been drifting off later in the week anyway for questions. But we had a couple great questions come in from Sunday, so I will answer those best I can, and then kind of fill you in on some stuff that we were talking about today as a staff, and just interesting conversation stuff. As you can tell, I'm wearing my Carolina Panthers shirt and not overly dressed for. There's a lot of internal meetings today. But those are fun. Tuesdays are fun. So we are starting a brand new series, and I'm really excited about it, called Growing Pains. And we did some final work on it this morning, and I'm really excited about it. I'm really excited about kind of the matrix that we've walked through of understanding spiritually where we are in a stage of growth, and how we can continue to grow. And there really is a never-ending aspect of our learning and growing in our faith. But there is infancy, and there is adolescence, and there is the toddlers, and there is kind of the difference between a young adult and an adult phase of maturity. And so actually, I think me and Don and Shin were all sharing some of this series together. We have some great weeks planned ahead. But I'm really excited about kind of kicking off this Sunday in terms of just coming together to grow. And so make sure you know about that. That's happening, like I said, this Sunday. We're going to be starting Growing Pains. We also have Growth Track happening at the same time. And I've heard some great things from folks that have already gone through their Enneagram and talked about sort of what that's done for them in terms of just helping them learn who they are and how they process things, and what that looks like, and how that really will and can change the steps you take for growth. All right. Here's a couple questions that came in. I was so happy to have my beautiful bride with me on Sunday. It was a lot of fun. Heard some great compliments of just having a little bit of a different delivery on Sunday than what we normally have, and making a little bit more of a conversation piece than a sermon, although I believe we still taught and expressed God's Word, and taught principles that I think will help us all be challenge us all to help us grow. I did have two questions specifically about the passage we read in 1 Corinthians 13, and I made a comment about the fact that it's sort of this well-known, everybody knows it, everybody's aware of it kind of scripture. And I had someone come up after the service, and man, they were processing that information as if they'd heard it for the first time, and really wanted to spend the week focused on the words of 1 Corinthians 13 in terms of love is patient, love is kind, it does not envy, it does not boast. I guess that's one thing we take as Christians for granted. Some of the things that we were raised with, and we just know, and maybe have been around a lot. We just don't sometimes understand the wellspring that is to people who are thirsty and needing and they weren't raised the way you were raised, and they don't know those things. So I was really excited about that. Hey, Julie, good to see you. Thanks for logging in today and giving me a wave. I don't know who else is on, but you guys can give me a wave as well. But yeah, that was really cool. So I did have a couple questions about that, not just the way love is described, but the context of the greatest of these is love, faith, hope, and love, and the greatest of these is love. The biggest thing that you can take away from 1 Corinthians 13 is where it's placed. Michelle Barker, hey, good to see you. The biggest thing you can take away from 1 Corinthians 13 is where it's placed, because the end of chapter 12, where he talks about all of the gifts that he gives the church and all of the way it works with the body, and he uses the body image. He talks about kind of the individual role, but then at the end of chapter 12, he says, let me tell you a better way, right? He says, let me tell you a better way to live. Let me tell you a better way how to process this. And that's when he goes into, if I could solve all the mysteries, and if I, use my body as a sacrifice, and even if I could speak with the tongues of angels, but I didn't have love, it really doesn't mean anything. And so what a great challenge that is to understand why that section of verses is there. And so I just thought I'd respond to that question, because I really, really do like you got to look at the placement of where the context of how Paul was writing it, and why it really mattered to go right there. The second one was specific to sort of a statement I made about my parents talking about that we're going to make it. And the context was just the fact that my parents, I told my parents that I didn't know if we were going to make it through the teenage years with my two oldest currently. I don't know. I think my third one's going to be already challenging me quite a bit in terms of how maybe she's going to be in her teenage years. Baby Awesome might not be all that awesome as a teenager. But I will say that the comment was, you're going to make it, everything's going to be fine. The comment was, what about people that are going through it and their kids have, they're sort of the story of the prodigal kid, and the kids have rejected truth, and they've walked away from church, and they've walked away from their family, and there's been nothing but heartache, and decisions have been made for them to live lifestyles that don't honor God. And there are some parents that were in the room, and parents that were watching online that, maybe they're in that phase right now where it doesn't look like they made it. It doesn't look like everything's going to be okay. It doesn't look like that. And I wanted to say to you specifically, and I appreciate the person who wrote this question said it with a tone of, that's not, they weren't complaining that I didn't, single them out or whatever. That it is the majority of time, it's true. But the encouragement to those who are, you're in the middle of it. All I could say is, go to Luke 15. Go to the passage. Go to see the prodigal son. One of the things I think sometimes we skip over in Scripture is the timing of things. It talks about the son taking all the wealth and going away and spending it all. I don't know how long that took. And then after he spent it, he kind of had to hit rock bottom. And I don't know how long that took. And after he hit rock bottom, he was in in eating the sludge with the pigs. And finally it says, and suddenly his eyes were open. I don't know how long that took. And then we see him going back to the Father, and the Father was waiting with his eyes open, eyes on the horizon, and his arms open wide. I don't know how long that took. Again, we read it in the context of 7 or 8 verses, and it's just the narrative is just so quick. But I don't know how long that took. And mainly because it's a parable, it's an illustration. I think for any parent who's currently struggling, any mom, because it was Mother's Day, any mom who's currently struggling with children that have basically said, I don't want to go to church. I don't want to do this. I don't believe what you believe. I'm going to make my own decisions. I'm going to leave you, and maybe that's caused some conflict for you and your family, and maybe they don't feel as comfortable coming home anymore, and maybe they don't call that much anymore, and the decisions they're making are just breaking your heart. My encouragement to you is that I really do still believe that my parents, what they said, the heart of what they said really still does matter. The fact that they are still here, they are still following God, that they are still trusting in Him, even when their life hasn't been perfect. I mean, my parents have their own story of my older brother, who was the prodigal, and it was very tragic because it wasn't until my brother decided years and years and years and years and years of the heartbreak and heartache. Wasn't until after that my brother decided to re-engage in relationship with my family, and right about the same time he was going to re-engage with my family in terms of relationship-wise, he was killed in a car accident. And the sermon that the pastor preached at my brother's down in Florida, where they kind of had a service for my brother, the sermon that he preached was called "What Happens When the Prodigal Doesn't Make It Home." And you may hear that and think, well, that's just horrible. Well, no, we didn't get to experience the reconciliation of relationships, and no, the memories we have are not the best of memories, especially in the last few years when he had taken off. But you know what? My parents can focus on that, or my parents were able to focus on that there did seem to be a change in his heart. There did seem to be a desire to reconnect with the family. And they're able to see that. They're able to see that he made a profession of faith as a kid, and they were trusting in God fully for who really is the father in that story. And so I think for anybody that's struggling with the in-between time where the prodigal kids have gone, and maybe they're not physically gone, which makes it maybe even worse. They stopped going to church with you, beginning of middle school, and they're in high school now, and they're still under your roof, but they are made it very, very clear they want nothing to do with you, and they want nothing to do with the God that you worship, and they want nothing to do with church, and they want nothing to do with the decisions that come with kind of an obedience and faith and hope. And they may not be physically gone, but they're still breaking your heart. You're still struggling with, are things going to work out? Are things going to be okay? I think it goes back to the answer to that question is that, our faith and trust is in God, that it will work out, that at some point, that they will turn, that at some point God will, get their attention, that you hope it's not, you pray that it's not in a bad way, but you really do pray that God really steps in and meets a need and is undeniable in their life. And your hope and prayer is not in your children, because that's what we talked about Sunday, that your hope is in your kids, the same hope that God has for you. At a certain point, that's just all of our hope is in God. And that's where our hope comes from. But all of our hope is in God for our kids as well. Because if history and everything goes to show anything, then I have 3 kids that are all pastors' kids. And statistically, there will be prodigal children in either my family or just period, because pastors' kids have a reputation of rejecting and falling away. And I don't want any of that for my kids, but the fact is I have to prepare my heart for the fact that my kids may, no matter how great the church has been to them, no matter how intentional I've been in terms of conversation, no matter how loving our home has been, no matter what we do to honor God with our kids as stewards of our kids, my kids have free will and are still going to make their own decisions. And now I have a lot of influence over those decisions that I make for them right now. But there will come a day where they're making their own, and the consequences are their own. And because of that, my trust really isn't just me, the hope that I did everything right and that everything's going to be okay. My trust is that God loves them even more than I love them, which is, for every parent that's listening, you understand that. And it's probably even hard to fathom that God loves your babies. Okay, He loves your kids. He loves your teenagers. He loves your young adult children more than you do, right? More than you do. As much as you love them, he loves them more. And he is the one with his eye on the hill, with his eye on the hilltop, waiting for them to return. Okay? That's a picture of God. It doesn't have to be a picture of us. Maybe sometimes we get distracted and our eyes are down, or we're frustrated and we're not doing very much to help bring about the restoration of relationships. But God's always got his eyes on the horizon. He's always ready for his children to come home. And so, I pray for you in the midst of that time, the time that you are in the middle, the time that you are in the middle of this wayward period. But I really want you to put your trust in God, that your trust and your hope is in him, not in the fact that you did it right or didn't do it right. Even as Tracy said Sunday, that love covers a multitude of sins. And it's never too late to continue to extend that love and extend that grace and extend your heart and arms to them, even when they're breaking your heart, even when they're making horrible, horrible life decisions. Like I said, our trust is in our Father. All right, our trust is in God. So thank you so much for asking and for emailing me and asking some of those questions. I love to be able to engage in some of those things and just speak into it if I can. Hopefully that's helpful for anybody who watches this later. Hopefully it's helpful for you. We did have an interesting discussion today, and I'm just going to end it with this just because I found it quite interesting. I was reading, I heard a podcast and was reading an article about a guy that I followed for a good period of time, a Christian guy, who has gone into the, I think he's created a Christian cannabis like product line. And he's a pretty well-known guy. He's pretty popular. And he sort of dove straight into what's still a pretty controversial thing, especially in states like ours where it's not legal. And whether people are for it or whether people are against it, and how's the church going to handle it. I'm probably a little more paying attention to it right now because from last fall to now, where I live in Canada, or where my family lives, and where I went back to visit my folks, Canada had just made it completely legal, and they were having issues at the border, and then Michigan made it legal, and there's just I can't go into all those things, but at some point there's going to be a lot of conversation about how the church responds and how do Christians respond and how are Christians supposed to do, handle this and not handle this, and hey, this is very well the world that my kids are growing up in. My kids are grown up and could very well, by the time they're 16, 18, whatever the legal ages are, it could be perfectly legal for them to do something that when I grew up, it was as illegal as all get out. And all the things I saw as a kid about there was an egg in a frying pan and here's your brain on drugs. And that's just constant in terms of what they, what I was taught and how I responded to those things. My kids might be growing up in a world where, hey, it's just like cigars and just like cigarettes and just like alcohol. And it's just it's a legal narcotic. It's illegal. You're allowed to use this. Anyway, I'm curious. Yes, Shayna, Tracy did an awesome job, and I've told her that, and you should text her because sometimes she doesn't believe me when I tell her she did an awesome job, but I think she did an awesome job too. So Shayna, you text her or you Facebook Messenger and you say, Tracy, you did an awesome job. Thank you for that. But anyway, we had a big conversation about that this morning, just primarily because, again, everything continues to be rolling in this direction. And just for me, I continue to work through, well, how are we going to handle that? How do we handle that as parents? How do we handle that with our kids? How do we handle it as a church? At no point are we going to be lighting up at Journey. There won't be like a come on in and get your CBD oil, at the cafe, along with your drink, along with your coffee. It's just, I'm not interested in making any products. Let me put it that way. We're all about Journey Ventures. We're all about doing some things to engage the marketplace, but we are not going down that road. And so I definitely would love to begin and maybe engaging in some conversation with you about it. You can email that or text that. You can email QnA at thejourneyonline.com and just give me your thoughts on it, because I'm sure whether it's a podcast or another one of these Facebook Lives, I'd love to begin talking about what you're going to do as a parent, what you personally believe, and how you're going to handle this in terms of as it continues to grow in our country and as it continues to be pushed into this place where it'll be a legal substance. And so love to hear from you and love to continue the conversation with you as a church, like we were having together just as a staff today. But that's it. It's been 20 minutes, and I love you guys. Thank you for tuning in. Those who did tune in, it's been great to see you, and I look forward to this Sunday. Again, Growing Pains. It's going to be a great series. Really looking forward to this Sunday, and I look forward to seeing you guys all then. Thanks, team. Bye.